Paranormal in Pennsylvania may discuss topics such as suicide, murder, and other potentially upsetting things. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome to Paranormal in Pennsylvania,
where we discuss history and haunts.
Today's story takes us to Philadelphia, where some people say is the birth of America. I'm Sarah.
And I'm David.
Let's get into it. Independence Hall.
Crazy place.
I cannot believe this place has not been on our list this whole time. I literally thought of it this week. And I thought, why haven't we covered Independence Hall?
I don't know. Philly is kind of your territory, not mine.
Inquiring minds want to know, is Independence Hall haunted? And the inquiring minds are myself.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of Independence Hall.
It's such an important place. And again, I think it's crazy it took so long for us to cover it. So, the history. This could be a whole multi-series podcast on itself about the history of Independence Hall. So I summed it up the best that I could, and all of the history comes directly from the National Park website.
It's a building where important historic things happened.
Great summary. End podcast. No. So, Independence Hall, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Many people know the history of this place, but for those of you that don't, I'm going to break it down. Both the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution were both debated and signed here. You can currently see the Liberty Bell on this campus that Independence Hall is on. Construction began in 1732 on a building that was intended to be the Pennsylvania State House, and this building was meant to house the three branches of the state government. However, when it came time for the Second Continental Congress and the Constitutional Convention, the state let their building be used by the nation for these two events. So this is where George Washington was appointed as Commander-in-Chief of the Army in 1775. This is where the Articles of Confederation took effect in 1781. This is where Ben Franklin and many other founding fathers debated the basics of America. However, that just scratches the surface because so much happened here. We really don't have time to list everything. There were trials, there was British occupation, so tons of stuff. Most of the building is original. One thing that isn't is the tower that we now see above Independence Hall. It was added in 1828 when William Strickland restored the original building, and he added the clock that we see there today. You know, like the white part of the building with the clock.
Isn't that still fairly a good long time ago?
200
that was only
years.
That was only 50 years after?
Yeah, 50 years after. And no. The construction began in 1732. It was 100 years after that they changed it, and 200 years ago that they added it.
Right. My point being, this wasn't a modern addition.
No.
By any means, like we see with some places. Historical buildings.
That's a good clarification. So, for the sake of time, I'll end the history there with adding one thing, that Nicolas Cage did steal the Declaration of Independence.
You bet I do.
Nick Cage.
And you can visit it now as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it's open daily from 9 to 5. I'm sure it's not open on holidays, but it didn't specify that on the website. There is a $1 ticket fee, processing fee, but tickets are not required in January or February except on holiday weekends, and the tickets are really just timed because you can see the whole campus. You can see the assembly rooms, the Liberty Bell, etc., and so many people want to do it that the tickets are really just to make sure there's not a zillion people there at once. Tons of information on the tour that'll give you more history than I just did, so highly recommend it.
And the ticket is $1 rather than the $8 at other locations. Other historic locations, maybe historic cemetery, I don't know.
You're still salty about that.
Maybe I am.
So that's the history. Now moving on to the ghost stories. And I thought, this place is going to be crawling with ghosts. So much has happened there. We're talking 300 years of history. And I was actually kind of wrong.
I was going to say, you were building this up only to rip it down or just drop the hammer. One of the two things is going to happen there.
I thought there is no way I thought this was going to be, 20 hours of research. But it wasn't. And we'll get into the ghosts. There's still a decent amount of ghosts, just not as many as I expected. And we do see notable historical figures here. So no surprise that there are notable historical figures as spirits as well. So the most commonly seen are Benedict Arnold and Benjamin Franklin. Now, Benjamin Franklin, it's so funny that you said what you said earlier. Benjamin Franklin haunts his grave not too far away in Christ Church Cemetery as well. You can also enter for a fee to see the cemetery. And so we know that he's there. And he's also seen in some other places around the city. Some people have reported seeing him wandering. So he's in many places. But he is commonly seen in Independence Hall in the assembly room. And he is sometimes accompanied by a musty smell. A musty smell is kind of a common report.
When spirits are near? Or
just about Independence Hall, people say it's paranormal, but it is 300 years old.
It is an old building, but I thought musty smells are... People also tend to smell that, or is it like rotting?
No,
Earth.
I think it could be musty. I think just any abnormal sort of smell.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it could be. And he's not just in the assembly room standing around. No. He appears to be examining a copy of the Declaration of Independence, which I think is so cool. It's like he's still reliving things, even as a spirit. And he does sometimes shift from room to room, almost as if he's walking around, but he is most commonly seen in that assembly room looking at the Declaration of Independence. Again, that Nicolas Cage stole.
But he did give it back.
Let the record reflect.
Let the record reflect that he was a nice man and gave it back. Another interesting thought I had about this, and we could have had this with several other episodes at this point too, is something we've entertained. It's not necessarily a ghost, but there is so much energy, and we've always talked about it in a negative energy of, like, for instance, like a battlefield, and then soldiers. So like the imprint is there. But what if this is an imprint of a very, like, positive, like the energy was so alive and electric there for creating these documents and creating this nation?
That's a great point. This was a big deal. So I could see it. So the other notable historical figure is Benedict Arnold. And for those that might not know who he was previously part of the Americans, and then he defected and he supported the British. So he's known as a traitor. He's more fluid, seen wandering between rooms, never really stopping for extended periods of time. And paranormal investigators and mediums that have visited said that he seems remorseful, as if he wants the forgiveness of the other founding fathers in the country for defecting.
Oh, that's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Also, don't betray the United States.
Yeah. One report from a visitor says that they walked into one of the rooms alone, only to see and hear Washington and Jefferson arguing with each other.
Could totally see that.
Incredible. Can you imagine? Like, I don't think my mind would even be able to process that I was seeing spirits in the moment. It would just be like, oh my gosh. I'm like, this is happening in front of my face.
Yeah, that is wild. Again, I guess that makes me think even more like an imprint. Maybe not for Benedict Arnold.
Yeah.
Maybe he is a remorseful ghost, but to see like Washington and Jefferson, because much like Jefferson, Washington has several reported locations of like where his ghost is. Yeah.
When the person made a noise, the two figures actually both disappeared.
Okay, well, my theory's cool too.
I mean, it still could be like you're interrupting the flow, the imprint.
Sure.
You know. Other unidentified spirits are seen roaming the halls as well. In addition to the actual figures that are seen, visitors report clouds of mist that they believe are spirits themselves or associated with spirits. Specifically, Benjamin Franklin is seen with a sort of mist coming off of his body.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Usually when we hear like mist figure, it's like on a camera recording.
Correct, yeah. And not typically associated with a spirit that, I'll say an apparition. You know, it's typically mist on its own. So I thought that was interesting.
But there are certain horror figures too in history that have been like, like a report like the Grim Reaper might appear with mist swirling around him too.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And perhaps then mist is just symbolic of being death, foreboding, just the unknown.
Mm-hmm. Could be.
I don't know.
Visitors also report seeing shadow figures that appear to be going about their day as if running on a loop. One figure actually set off the security alarm near the first floor by the clock tower, and when the security guard went to check, they saw a male apparition dressed in 18th century clothing, but the apparition disappeared as the security guard approached it. But it was significant enough that it set off the security alarm.
Like a motion sensor?
I think so.
Okay. Because like my thought was like, oh, did it open a door? But then once you said at the tower, that sounds like it was outside.
No, it was like under the tower on the first floor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wanted to dig more into first-hand accounts because the Independence Hall gets so many visitors. So I looked on various travel sites to see what people were reporting seeing there. One person named Tyler H. said that they visited on 2 separate occasions. The first occasion was marked by feeling cold spots and seeing figures standing and staring at the group. So the way they described it is their group was walking through Independence Hall, and then off to the side they would catch a glimpse of a figure standing and staring at them. Almost as if people are watching them.
Okay. A little skeptic on that one, but...
I mean, with people like Nicolas Cage stealing the Declaration.
How do we know Nick Cage ever left? How do we
It-
not know it's Nick Cage watching you?
Whew. Facts.
Yeah, these are the true facts of American history. It was Nick Cage that did it.
This is the big conspiracy behind Pip. No. Okay. So on the second visit, the person reported feeling much more uneasy, with them feeling like the paintings were watching them. And they heard voices behind them, but couldn't identify the sources on multiple different occasions.
So my skepticism again rises to this, because clearly the paintings are not of Nick Cage's face, so they are not watching
Oh my
it.
god.
I know, the bit's a little old now. But in all honesty, I feel like that person going the second time after thinking that they were being watched is probably very heightened
I agree.
and would then be more prone to seeing things, whether that be true or not. But I would think more false than true.
And with the voices, old buildings that are made out of like marble and stone are very, very echoey. So I think depending on where they were in the building, it could have been echoes that they were hearing, but it could have been spirits. I mean, it is known to be haunted.
Right. I'm not discrediting it. It's just my own skepticism kind of rises to potentially explain that. And then like cold spots, it's a 300-year-old building.
Yeah, it's going to be uneven.
There are going to be,
Yeah.
there are going to be places that are cold.
Yeah. Other people report feeling poked or having their hair pulled, which we know are both common ways that the spirits will interact with people. And some visitors even report intense headaches that get better once they leave. Now, I have said before at the Hill Physic House and the Mutter Museum that headaches I did not think were part of the paranormal experience there. I think that's very specific to those locations. I could see this being part of a paranormal experience here. Of just a force acting upon the person. Because the reason I discredited it at the Mutter and at the Hill Physic House is because there's anatomical anomalies and diagrams. So I think that could make people feel lightheaded or get a headache or feel off. But here, there's nothing that should cause that.
I kind of like the idea of, in my mind, it's the founding fathers sharing the headaches that they had.
Yeah.
Drafting these documents.
Yeah, they're like, guess what? You want this? You need to suffer.
Yeah, you're now part of the experience.
Yeah. Some visitors, I think this one's cool, report a drastic mood change while they're there. They say that they shift from happy spending the day with their families to angry and argumentative. Now, I will say that I've been there multiple times. And there's tons of people, and there's tons of lines. So I could definitely see that grating on your patience. But I do think that there's likely residual energy there because there were so many debates. And not just like calm debates, very important, significant debates.
Right. Very heated.
Right, heated is a great word. And we know that, the spirits of Washington and Jefferson are arguing. We know Ben Franklin is still trying to oversee the Declaration. We know that Benedict Arnold is upset and walking around. So I do think that there could be an air of negativity that most people wouldn't associate with Independence Hall.
That, yeah, I mean, I agree that could easily be there. I think I think while there's also a lot of negativity there, I think there's also essentially like a lot of positivity, but considering, well, the positives of what was done there.
Yes.
But yes, like the making of it, forging of that document, ooh,
Tense.
pretty tense.
So the final report that I have to discuss is phantom footsteps, and this is reported by security guards and guests alike, both seeing and hearing these phantom footsteps. When they see the footsteps, they say that it almost looks wet, like someone's walking with wet shoes across the floor, but then they quickly fade away.
Okay, I was going to say, how do you see footsteps in that regard? Okay, that's actually really cool.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever had that at another place, the like wet footstep thing.
No, or just like any sort of residual footstep that hadn't been like mud or something that
Right.
like the spirit might attract inside from outside.
Sure. So all that being said, you have never been here. Would you go?
Oh yeah, I'd go.
I would love to go back. I'd love to go back for a ghost hunt. They don't really do those. I think they tend to discourage the paranormal association of it. But I would love to go back for a ghost hunt, or even just bring some of our tools and see if we capture anything on the EMF reader or any photos or anything.
So what are we gonna like whip out the EMF reader and be like, what are you getting?
Well, what are they going to say? Stop using that? Okay, then I'll put it back in my purse. Like,
Well,
I don't
that
think
means we were bad at hiding using it. That's
I don't
my
think
point.
I don't think they care. They just don't want to offer ghost tours, you know. I don't think
Okay.
they want to. I think they want to keep it very historical. The building has so much historical significance. They don't want to muddy it. And I know we're making light of it with the Nick Cage jokes, but it is a very important building.
Yeah, it is. And I guess, in my view, I guess it'd be a shame to look at it as muddying rather than like enriching.
That's how I think. You know, imagine telling someone you can see Benjamin Franklin, you can see Washington and Jefferson fighting.
Well,
That's a draw to me.
you wouldn't say you can. You'd say you might.
You
Who
might.
knows?
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're guaranteeing, and people will definitely be upset about that.
Yeah, give me my money back. I didn't see a ghost. Yeah. So that is Independence Hall, a very brief history and some of the hauntings there. Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode, and tune in next Thursday to see what hauntings we discuss next. Stay spooky.